Let's talk about permanent residence options for people to get into the U.S. or Canada. What are the most common ways? We've already talked about being married or getting married is a fairly common one, I guess. What are some other options for people that would like to become a permanent resident in either the U.S. or Canada?
For the US, there's a couple of programs, and one of them, if people can consider this, is called EB5. It's you have to invest a certain amount into approved projects or government-run projects in the US, and they can give you an instant green card. When I mean instant, you'll not take it. Actually, you have to go through a backlog for immigration, but you don't have to wait. You don't have to visit the US before and then stay for a couple of years and then get the green card. Once you do the investment, you will be put into like a queue, and once you have gone into the queue, depending on your country of nationality, you will be able to get a green card for you and your family. The amount of investment is it's not less than $500,000, but this is one of the options that people can consider for getting a fast route access to the US immigration. That's one of the things. The other thing that you can move to the US as a student or as highly skilled worker, and you get approved to stay on a student visa or worker visa, and then you can switch your status after a couple of years depending on your nationality and the queue, and then you can apply for a green card. I know some people have done it in a very few, less than 5 years, and I know others that stay more than 10 years. So if you are planning to move to a country, and I will talk here in the US, make sure that you do a little bit of background study about the different ways of getting into a green card. Once you have the green card, we consider this as in immigration that you are half citizen. You can do everything as a citizen except voting, but you have most the rights and responsibilities as a citizen. The only thing that is that if you wait at the green card and then you can apply for U.S. citizenship, it's very hard to the citizenship to be taken from you, but the green card can expire following the guides and rules for the date that you have the expiry. If you've been away from the US for a certain time, the green card will expire. So what I can advise here, that anyone going to travel to a country for short term or long term, if they will consider in the near future that they would like to get a permanent resident or a green card in the US and the citizenship, they would like to make sure that they follow the best route for them, and make sure that they follow the guidelines and understanding. They don't have to follow it and understand the law itself, but the general guidelines. That's one of the things. Also, we'd like to make it very simple for anyone, and we will add that we will make like simple guidelines in VISCA that people can follow, and options for permanent resident for the US. That's one thing. If we go to the Canadian, the permanent resident program in Canada, it's totally different. If you are a skilled worker and you have been appointed or nominated by the Federal Express Entry program in Canada, you can get a permanent resident once you land into the country. And this is one of the you can say fascinating things in Canada as an immigration nation. You don't have to wait a couple of years until you reach the PR status. But very few numbers are actually can be accepted into the Express program. If you are a student, you can follow the same way, but it will take you more couple of years. There's one also thing that there's different programs, like one, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are starting a business, and this business will be considered as highly backed venture business, you can go into the startup visa and you can run the program, you can run the business for 2 years, and then you can apply to switch your status and get the permanent resident in Canada, follow the guidelines. There's another one for business operators. If you, it doesn't have to be a VC backed business. It could be like small businesses exporting or importing, or even have like a service based business, and you can start this business in one of the Canadian city. You follow a certain, you have to prove that the business will sustain itself in the first couple of years. And once the business is successful, you can switch from normal stay to a permanent resident. So there is always a different ways that you can use to get your permanent resident in different countries. So we back to the same advice. Make sure which route you are using to reach the permanent resident. If you consider that when you move to a new country, that you would be consider this country as a new home.
Right, and from a little bit of my research, one of the most common people also ask questions on Google is about, related to permanent residency, is about gaining this permanent resident status as an international student. What should these students know about their options after graduation? I can say sort of from personal experience that they should be aware of any strings that are attached to grants that they're getting, because in some cases you can have the requirement to return to your home country for a certain amount of time after graduation, and it's very hard to sort of get that requirement lifted off of your status if you've taken certain government-backed grants for your study.
That's one of the misinformation that especially students don't understand at the beginning. If you are funded by your own country or government to travel to Canada to study at one of the universities, make sure to check the guidelines or the agreement that you have for such funding from your own country. Mostly governments or local grants and charities can fund international students on the way that they will bring the experience and the knowledge that they have gained in such international universities back to home countries. And this could make it an immigration problem. If you don't fly back or leave Canada after your studies and move to home countries, some programs say you have to stay for 2 years. Some programs say you have to stay for 5 years. If you don't follow the guidelines, sometimes you have to pay the amount of funding or donation that have been donated to you to access the university. That's one part. So make sure that you check before you accept kind of scholarships or funding. The other way around, the Canadian government have a couple of international funding opportunities for international students. This kind of funding even is not available to Canadian nationals, and it's help with enhanced international relation between Canada and different countries. So they can say, we can fund a student that will come to Malaysia to study at the Canadian governments, Canadian universities, but they have to follow, they can stay after the graduation, like 6 months, 12 months, but they have to travel back to Malaysia to stay from 2 to 3 or 5 years, depending on that kind of, and if you, for any reason, not be able to travel back, or you stay in Canada after the graduation, your immigration status could be revoked, and that could lead to a lot of problems. It would be very hard and expensive to be fixed later. So make sure which program you are applying in and the kind of nitty-gritty guidelines that including this in this program.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if you're a young student, you're not really always aware of all those details, or you just say, hey, somebody wants to pay me a bunch of money to go study in Toronto or New York, I'm going to go and do that. I don't really care what I have to do afterwards, right? But then eventually your mind might change. And, but in either case, it's a good opportunity, and definitely it's a popular way for people to get to both countries.